Irrational Radio.
Create something.
Hey everybody, we're back again with another episode of Table 13. I am your host, A Wooden Leg, and we got Mr. E and Mr. Shady above me there. Today we're doing another not your average bugbear, but this time we're doing
smarter than your average bugbear.
right.
No, you're
smarter than your average bugbear. That's what I said. I'm pretty sure
that's the
generated
pun.
an acronym. We have to stick to the
Right.
words.
Welcome back to another episode of STYAB.
It's the yogi.
STYAB.
That's my favorite.
And yeah, today we were talking about slaads, not to be confused with salads.
Slaad.
Slaad. Salad.
Is it Slaad or Slaad?
I like Slaad because it sounds a little bit less like salad, but
Perkins said Slaad, so
Slaad.
I think that was his spiel. But whatever. Either way, I don't think anybody's gonna lock you up for
Slaad.
saying
It's
either.
the double A that's really the weird part, you know. Is how do you pronounce that double A? But
That's
regardless,
weirder than the L part.
they are part of the plane of limbo. I guess we should start there. It's like, where the fuck do you find these things in the Forgotten Realms? So they are part of the plane of limbo, which is the
Like natives of it.
natives of the plane of limbo, which is the elemental chaos plane, chaotic neutral plane in the Great Wheel cosmology of the Forgotten Realms. They are, not stuff that you want to mess with. They're beings of pure chaos. They're born inside of some of them are born in the plane of limbo. The how they actually reproduce is something that we'll touch on here in just a little bit. But yeah, so they're from the plane of limbo. They have a long history. They go back to the very beginning of the the Forgotten Realms lore, and they're most commonly seen as toad or frog-like massive monstrosities that come in 3 common flavors and then a multiple variety of uncommon flavors. The common flavors are red, blue, and green. The uncommon flavors are gray, death, which I didn't realize was a color, but that's what Forgotten
flavor,
Realms.
though.
Yeah, it's a flavor. It's not a great flavor.
It's
The
very-
death Slaads are very scary.
Depends on your taste buds, I guess.
Right. And then after the death Slaad, we have even rarer forms like the white and the black Slaad, and then you got even crazier ones like Sloth Lords, and then the oft forgotten mud Slaads from the
Good
second
old
edition.
mudslides.
Mud
That's
Slaad.
That's a mudslide.
Mud
The
Slaad.
other landslides.
Right.
Landslides.
Landslides.
Waters.
So there's
Water
also
slides are my favorite.
a lot of, because of their chaotic nature. A lot of times they'll end up just with random shit like Medusa heads and like really weird, goofy shit that doesn't really align with what they are. But I guess just sort of sprouts out of nothing, like
Yeah.
out of the
Yep.
because chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen. Way
That's
too
oh
much
my
with
goodness.
everything.
It's like a lot of
That and the
Slaad.
salad jokes.
Yeah. Oh man, like Caesar Slaads. It's gonna be bad. But yeah, a lot of like the Slaads lore. Oh, this is something interesting too that I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork for. So Slaads are one of the few races in the Forgotten Realms lore that are not part of their open game license, which means that if you want to write a book on Slaads, you have to get permission from Wizards of the Coast directly and license that name from them. You can't just it's not like a dwarf or an elf or some of the other, even bullywogs are part of the OGL, but these are not. They were created in the Forgotten Realms exclusively. And as such, it's interesting because like with a lot of other races in the Far Realms, like with elves and stuff like that, you get like when you research lore about them, you get a lot of like muddled lore where you get stuff from like other places, or you get people that are confusing, Forgotten Realms with like Greyhawk or even like the elves of Forgotten Realms with the elves of Lord of the Rings and that kind of thing, which are radically different. But with Slaads, nope. Everything that was written about them was either written by a fan writing fan mail or by a Forgotten or a Wizards of the Coast employee or a TCG back when they were owned by them. employee. And so it's just, it goes on and on and on. There's so much written about these things over the last 30 years because they were appeared in first edition too. They're one of the, also some of the few races that appeared in first edition, and they have gone through some changes. That is for sure.
They didn't used to be different colors. It was just their
Right.
gem.
Yep. Now it's their skin and even how they reproduce
and size
and
everything.
and
There's all
that
this weird junk going on.
It's crazy.
Interesting. They're not just weird frog people anymore.
No.
Well, they're real weird frog people.
I mean,
they're real weird frog people.
They're just more than that too.
Yeah, and some of the things I found, like back in the first edition, Slaads were like the goblins, or like, you know, the ones that you just kind of kick around and make fun of because they were so goofy looking and they really didn't have necessarily a place in the lore of that time. They were just kind of like a goofy chaos monster that DMs could throw at them. Evil frog people, yeah. And like, even if like on the wiki page here, I'll pull that up real quick, is what they looked like back in the earlier editions.
Not quite as imposing.
No, actually cute.
I don't know if I go as far as say cute.
No, not
frogs.
cute.
Very much more frog-like than they turn out to be. Later on, it's like, yeah, they're like frog-inspired behemoths that, you know, with huge claws and talons.
So yeah, those good little guys right there. That was the first edition Slaad. So yeah, they look like just frog people wearing little like what are those things called?
Kotoa,
kind of like Kotoa.
It's like the same art basically.
Right? Yeah. And so they have definitely changed. I'll pull up a more modern version. Those are third edition Slaads right there. So you got the blue with his arm pincers, you got the red, you got the green, not shown casting magic, but a very powerful magic caster. You want to watch out for green Slaads if you're an adventuring party. And then the gray Slaads too, which are even more powerful magic casters. You got to watch out for them doubly. They're scary business. I think this is a good.
They have like swords and stuff.
Right? Yeah, the great swords. It's crazy. Like yeah. This is a good time to talk about their crazy reproductive process, because those those very large talon things on the back of the blue Slaad's hand are very important in the reproductive process of the Slaad, or at least the most commonly accepted reproductive process, because like I pointed out while we were talking about this beforehand, there's a few inconsistencies in the lore with Slaads, even in the player's handbook or the bestiary, 5th edition bestiary. Yeah, exactly. So you can either chalk it up to pure elemental chaos seeping its way into the pages, or lazy editing. But either one.
Nah, that couldn't be it.
No. So
Slaads.
Yeah.
Slaads, they will stick you with a bunch of eggs and plant
Yep.
eggs under your skin, which is just a wonderful concept. Which will hatch and turn into baby Slaads that eat your insides and then pop out your chest like a fucking alien
Ridley Scott alien
thing.
Yeah.
Not great.
And so they'll find, well, and that's called the Chaos Phage, I believe.
No, that's the blue Slaads are the disease one that like turns them. The eggs are just they plant eggs. Or whatever. You know, egging around.
But it'll create blue Slaad tadpoles, which is kind of neat because it's red Slaads creating them.
Sladpoles, perhaps.
I hate it. The blue Slaads, on the other hand, will like infect people with the Chaos Phage, as I've been reminded of, which is also horrible. Where they'll just turn into a red Slaad, basically over a horrifying, disgusting process.
This is awful.
It's
like life sapping transformation.
Over time, too. In third edition, it was in second edition, fourth edition, it was a charisma drain. And so over a period of time, you'd lose a charisma until you reached 0, and then you'd automatically turn into a red Slaad. Just poof. Or a green Slaad if you're a powerful magic caster, or over third level, or at a certain level.
third plus, yeah. I think you had to have access to magic, but I might be
In
wrong.
first edition, to turn into a green
Arcane.
slot, all you had to do was be over a certain level. You didn't actually have to be a magic caster. That changed after the third edition.
Gotcha.
So
That's
how
what
are
they got.
gray slots made? That's what
Gray
I
slot.
thought.
So
Yeah.
green slot. So like so red slots make blue slots with the eggs. Blue slots make red slots with the Chaos Phage. Green slots are made by either who infect a strong enough character or a strong enough magic user. I think in the current edition,
Right.
it's
In the
I
current
think they
edition,
have to
it's
have access to magic.
It's anyone over that can cast magic over third level.
So sixth level, fifth level character or higher, I guess. But then, so any green slot who it's not super specific on, but they sort of reach a point where they like kind of have some sort of epiphany and they go into like a, you know, the chrysalis state for a while or something, and then pop back out as a gray slot. Which then, they're like, I think they get smaller and like, more like
their strength decreases by 1.
Yeah, agile and smarter. And then if a gray slot eats the entire corpse of a death slot, they turn into a death slot. I think is how that happens.
Yup.
And
Which calls into question, of course, how did the first death slot come to be?
Or the backward time traveling Sloth Lord explains that right away for you. So we'll get to that.
Right?
It's really interesting though, because it creates a really neat, understanding like this reproductive cycle. This is one of like the main things about this creature that set it apart from shit like goblins and stuff. You can create a lot of really cool things just from the reproductive cycle of this. You can create like, groups of Slaads and sort of how they interact socially together, which we'll get into, I think, just based off the lore. But, looking at that as a model, you can create a lot of really cool stuff that, more than just walking in and smacking a bunch of hit point bags, gives the character something to discover and understand.
Yeah.
And like a lasting impact of an attack by a Slaad, like it's not necessarily a one-off thing. If they just hit you and run away, that could still be a really big deal for you if you don't have access to the proper magic to make sure you don't turn into a Slaad or have a Slaad burst out of your chest.
Both are bad.
Both you'd want to avoid, probably.
Both are bad.
But, I don't know your life. Maybe you want to be a Slaad.
That's true.
That's cool.
Yeah, who knows?
Or food for baby Slaad. That's probably
what
less
I want to
enjoyable.
be. Yeah, I would really like to be a food bag for a baby tadpole Slaad.
Living still.
No.
And there's no like, oh, you don't feel it. No, they're just like crawling around eating bits of you. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, they actually, they're like dormant for like months until the last 24 hours, and then they start eating you. So it's like
nice.
Yep. And they have the Slaad tadpoles have advantage on saves against magic detection and magic like what does it say here? I don't know if it's in the 5th edition, but yeah,
they're resist. I think even in 5th they're all resistant to
fire,
a ton of magic.
Thunder, tons of magic. So it's actually pretty hard to unless you know what a Slaad is, it's hard to know that you're infected by that, like the parasite in your chest, until they start eating you, which is bad.
So
and then you're
interesting
in a bad position where you're not going
it's too late. Yeah,
it's too late.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. But there's an interesting theory I've heard on one of the lore videos I was digging through. I think it was Mighty Glue Stick, but I'm not sure. Who's awesome. You guys should check him out if you haven't. What you call it? So I've totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Somebody pick this back up because I'm a dummy. Oof, derailed. It's the worst. Hasn't had me on air yet.
Reproductive cycle of Slaads.
Right.
Is where we were at.
Getting a Slaad bursting out of your chest is very bad. We should don't do that. Don't let yourself become attacked by a Slaad, because if you do get attacked, you're probably going to be infected by both it's spread by the claws of the Slaad, either the red or the blue, But the
Oh, I remember now.
oh, go for it.
Sorry. So,
damn it,
ways to detect the like eggs inside of you, or to
yes.
deal with the eggs being inside of you. Well, that's so I've heard some theories. One of them was on I totally derailed myself with the Mighty Glue Stick. You guys should check them out. You like turn invisible. Are the eggs invisible? Would they just be floating inside you? If you turn into a
Interesting.
gaseous form, would they just fall to the ground? Stuff like that, where, or even like, maybe teleportation magic. If you're talking about just targeting the character or the creature, maybe it doesn't target the
Right.
larva.
Oh God, that'd be horrible. I don't like
So-
the thought of like. I mean, maybe it's a good like. Oh, that'd be
Magic
a,
like
woo,
though,
by
wouldn't
that
it be
same
like
logic, though,
clearing
you
it out
get a-
with the
you get a fucking
teleporter
cold.
buffer or whatever?
If
right?
you get a cold,
Oh.
then you just go into gaseous form and all the
The virus is gone or whatever.
Though you
Right,
could
it's
argue
just
that the
Huh.
virus doesn't have advantage against a bunch of magical things, so it
There's yeah. Absolutely chaos. But yeah, so there's like weird ways that you could maybe work around trying to do that, other than just like, do you have great restoration or not, kind of thing. For like lower level party members who you maybe wanted to use a slot as like a background feature that the party decided to run up and punch in the face, and now you have consequences from that you're trying to deal with as a DM. Like, they don't have those spells yet and they're not gonna for a while. Then there's some other ways around it, maybe, potentially anyway. It's still probably not going to be fun, and that could be a really cool thing though, the slow, like, oh shit, like, you're slowly like turning into a Slaad, or
it's almost like a zombie apocalypse kind of thing, but a slow turn. Going along with adding Slaads into your campaign, the site themonstersknow.com is a really great DM resource to help you figure out how monsters would act in combat. One of the things I found super duper interesting about Slaads is that they're very dangerous, but they rarely, if ever, attack a group of adventurers in a group themselves. What they're more commonly able to do is, because they revere physical strength more than anything else, is they will attack you or your party by lining up and going one at a time to see which one of them is strong enough to beat you in single combat. And this is actually why many demons and devils won't use them as soldiers, because they find the idea of fighting in a group abhorrent, because it reduces chaotic natures. You're all one thing at that point.
Yep.
And you don't have an individuality.
It's a unified
Slaads
force
are all
or whatever.
about individuality. And so it's interesting that you could have.
You can't slap them together with the control gem stuff or whatever. But,
Right. But if you're
that's
gonna
slightly
have
different.
like Slaads attack a party in like a natural environment, not controlled by some kind of overriding entity, they're more likely to just line up and go, "Rah! Okay, all right, one Slaad's dead." I could just imagine a party taking on like a group of 10 Slaads, just one after another, and just by the last, they're like, "We have no more spell slots. Our healers are exhausted." And Slaad just like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's go." Like, it's a great image.
Mortal Slaad bat.
Right? Yeah. It's just an interesting, because like you wouldn't find goblins doing that. You wouldn't see an
Slaad
orc
pulls better
band
than
doing
that.
that. That is Slaad
Right.
the Impaler. I love it. But yeah, it's really interesting.
Slaad the Impaler.
Which
A+.
I guess this is moving us into like their social aspects and how they
Mhm.
function socially, which is I would have a hard time like playing a Slaad that wasn't beating the shit out of the party,
Right.
as a DM, because of how they interact. I was reading about them and how they don't respond in any like realistic, logical manner. Like it was talking about how like trying to make deals with Slaads is like basically punching yourself in the nuts. It's not. It doesn't go anywhere. It's
No.
a mess. They see flattery as trickery and deception as cooperation. If they believe they're learning something new about the world, they're real volatile and will most often result in like running away or just screeching and shit until people like are done. They're not real great diplomats.
4th edition introduced a table that a DM could roll at the top of every turn order, where it would determine the Slaad's overall behavior for that round, and they range from the Slaad believes the characters no longer exist and ignores them unless they attack it. The Slaad runs away, convinced the characters are powerful individuals that wish to do it harm. Or if you roll high enough, the Slaad attacks in rage whenever it hits with a melee attack, and the attack does an extra 1d6 damage. So really, it's just like, 1 minute it's freaking out on you, and the next minute it's like, I don't think you're there. I don't really believe you're there. And then the next minute, it just starts croaking continuously and loudly until the characters attack it or depart. The croaking attracts the attention of other Slaads or hostile creatures in the area. So it's just like you just got this thing croaking in front of you after it attacked and murdered your cleric. And you're just like, what is this?
Just sits
thing?
down and acts like a normal frog. Well, that's one of the other things, though, is it's probably not gonna fight to the death.
No.
Very often, because that prohibits its ability to reproduce. It's not gonna try and kill its targets. It's gonna and you can also these sort of hit and run sort of tactics where they'll run in and just tag somebody and then leave.
Yep.
Because they've got shit like plane shift or whatever if you get high enough, and it's just like, okay,
greens.
screw you guys.
Yep,
I'm gonna drop a fireball on your ass and do sound. Like, I mean, that's how you make a party hate an individual. By the way, like if you want them to build, Slaads are really good for that. And you can make them do whatever because they don't. Yeah,
they don't have to have any logical path.
I did see that a couple of like the lore videos and stuff recommended that you introduce Slaads as kind of like after battle vultures, because they'll come in and collect the wounded or unconscious and take them to Slaad reproduction camps, where they'll chain you up and then
reproduction camps.
That way there's no chance of the mage or whatever finding a cure for it, because they're chained in some kind of horrific breeding pit. So think about that.
I heard that I read somewhere they hang out around the blood war stuff, the demons and devils fighting. They'll chill out in Avernus and do the same kind of thing. It's like they're just going around picking up victims and people that are that they can keep alive just long enough to hatch their larva, or to suffer from the Chaos Phage long enough to turn into a Slaad or whatever. But that's like super trippy, I guess. That they're
definitely like a fucking pandemic. There's something you could treat on that level in a game.
Exactly.
Where it's like they're spreading and they're getting out of hand, and for every new Slaad, there's one less person because it takes a person to make a Slaad.
And and then I think there is, I can't remember what it is, but I want to say that there's like an established adventure somewhere that uses this as a concept. But you can do like a fantasy alien situation where there's one person who you guys find and he's got a big hole in his chest, and you got to figure out where the larva is before it turns into a fully matured Slaad and starts murdering everybody, kind of thing.
That's bad.
And it's like a mystery deal, and then it's like everybody's slowly turning, and it's affects too many all of a sudden.
From Resident
boom.
Evil 2,
Right?
when that cop turns into a zombie.
Exactly.
No, I don't like it.
So moving on, I would like to touch on the Sloth Lords.
Sure.
But we should finish off with the reproductive cycle of the Slaad, because if a death Slaad, so a green Slaad goes off and meditates for a while, comes back as a gray Slaad. Then a gray Slaad finds the corpse or kills a death Slaad and eats their corpse. They can become a death Slaad themselves. Then a death Slaad can go off and meditate somewhere in a swamp and comes back as a white Slaad. White Slaads are even more chaos bound. They can breathe chaotic energy that
like an entropy aura.
Reduces armor and weapons, and they can break weapons with like their base melee attacks and stuff. It's crazy. But then a white Slaad can go meditate and then come back as a black Slaad, which is even more chaosy, and yeah, it's just
and
more
totally different
powerful.
from Death and Gray,
Right,
no matter what you say.
right. Even though they're it's weird how
I
they're
want to know
going
what
through that.
color a death slot is supposed to be. Because they're all
It's
colors.
right.
Death is not a color.
It's
Death is not a color.
no,
That's
death
true.
is not a color. Yeah,
Ultraviolet.
I don't know.
I think ultraviolet slot.
I think it's like a negative energy thing with the like there's some sort of interaction with the negative energy plane.
Yeah,
is something
they're
to do with it
drawing
in
more,
some of the lore I've read.
yeah,
but
more chaos entropy into themselves. But then
they're actually evil.
Bags brings up a good point. How does a being of chaos meditate?
Yeah,
I'd like
right.
to. I'd like to
That's
be a
the
fly on the
thing.
wall in that scenario.
Yeah.
I argue that they aren't necessarily like unthinking, unreasoning entities entirely. Although they probably do. Like they can have agendas, and like it just might
Right.
not make sense to someone else. Like they want to do a thing and will engage in certain behavior to achieve that goal. It just might not. The dots might not connect to somebody else who's watching
Right.
it. Like.
Or anybody else who's watching.
Yeah,
it, honestly.
Primus watching it might be like, "What the fuck?
What is going on?"
No, actually, he wouldn't. He doesn't ever do that. That's the whole thing. But
something that another YouTuber talked about is that the highest level is these black Slaads, but there is like rumor that a black Slaad can go off and meditate, and in an attempt to recombine with the plane of limbo and like melt back into the chaos of the realm. And it's an interesting theory that these Sloth Lords that we're going to talk about are actually the black Slaads who failed at melding in with the chaotic energies and have now been basically cursed with maintaining their forms forever, which is ultimate lawful, and are almost like bound to basically serve almost as Primus's like guardians inside the plane of limbo. But that's all kind of hearsay too. And there's also like ideas that that one of these guys, Yorgul, has a bunch of Slaads of different colors, like all of the colors of the rainbow chained up somewhere in limbo. So that the randomness of the Slaads is reduced, so that there isn't a Slaad that is born, or the chance of a Slaad being born that could rival the Sloth Lord's power is diminished greatly. But again, that's more of like outside stuff. But yeah, so there are three major Sloth Lords that are in the lore, which is Korst the Unpredictable, STYAB the Slaad Lord of Insanity, and Yorgul, the Sloth Lord of Entropy.
Can you say that second one again, please?
It's double
it's
S.
madness backward.
And oh yeah.
Sendam is what you want.
Yep.
I like Sysadam, but that's
Sendam. Yep. I'm gonna
some extra letters in there.
Sticking with that. But yeah, so I've got the Sloth Lords pulled up here on Wikipedia, and yeah, they're crazy. They're not great things to run into.
Yorgul is my favorite. That was the the traveling backward in time Sloth Lord. The legend goes, I believe, that he's created basically at the end of time and existence and experiences time backward and gets more powerful as he goes. And there's something to do with the Dawn War where a bunch of gods go back to the beginning of creation, and Yorgul's there, and he's immensely powerful. Or not Yorgul's. What is that right?
Yeah, Yorgul.
Yeah. But he's there, and he's immensely powerful, and like. And then again, that's sort of where you can bridge the gap with some of these things like, well, where's the first Death Sled come from and stuff like that.
Right.
Because this dude's doing this weird, ass backward trip through existence thing. And then he's, it's a cool concept. He's basically death. Like he's a skeletal, Slaad, with big wings and a scythe that has death inscribed on it. And he rides a dragon, and he's the Grim Reaper. Like it's kind of cool.
He was also featured as the main boss in a video game that came out in the early 2000s.
That's real life.
Way different though.
Yep. Yeah, way did not do that.
Nope.
He's supposed, but that's one of the things. Slaads can change forms, most of them.
Yes.
They can at least change form to
green
the
and above
same.
can transform into humanoid.
Right, that's right.
Any
Yeah.
humanoid form. Yeah. Red and blue and mud sloths.
They're stuck as frog folk.
Yep.
But I guess to like go back to the beginning of it all, or do we want to go into the rest of the lords? Because I don't really know anything about any of the one other than Yaracle. Because he's cool.
So what's interesting though is there are 3 major ones, and there has been more lords that have existed in other editions and in other adventures. And I gotta find the page. Hang on, I lost it here. There we go. So the course, the 3 main ones, like I said, are Korst, Sendam, and Yorgel. Korst is appeared in the 2nd edition, and he is the Sloth Lord of Randomness. So he is like depicted in random shapes, in random forms, and in random places in Limbo for the most part. He has no residence, no home base, or any temporary domicile. Feels at home wherever he goes. No particular dogma. He only wishes to indulge himself in whenever possible. One moment he may be tearing a Githzendi to pieces, the next he most suddenly stop to sniff a pretty flower that got his faces. You have to live with my pronunciations of things. And
I like how Zindi came in there somehow. I've been watching Enterprise, so that's nice pull.
Oh,
Get
God.
Sarah.
Yeah. And so he is depicted as usually a massive blue slot, I believe. I gotta find the page that was better. Descriptions of the Sloth Lords.
But they're like, they're sort of. I think I also remember it coming up in a couple of the different ones is that they don't want to be revered like most of them anyway. They don't want to be revered like deity. At least Yorgel for sure. I want to say. They think that that's fucked. They're like, no, that's like the opposite of our whole spiel here, which is kind of interesting too. So they do work against the whole like large hierarchical systems thing. It makes it difficult if you don't get into the whole control gem thing to control them in more orderly manners, I guess.
So I found the page with all the Sloth Lords. So like first 3. Korst is Lorna Ramlis. He's a 20-foot tall white Slaad. He'll sometimes leave a fight in mid-combat and just teleport away because he's bored of it. His presence dissolves chaos-shaped land in Limbo, which is something that we can kind of get into. So in Limbo, if you're in Limbo, you can roll a Wisdom check to manipulate everything around you in a certain area. So you can create like a piece of land with breathable air. You're gonna want to do that because like the chaos elemental is.
Otherwise, you won't have it.
You won't. You will die. Yeah. But this guy's presence dissolves that reality. So anything that you mentally project into Limbo gets dissolved by this guy's very presence. Spells cast near him always trigger a wild surge, which is not a great thing if you're a spellcaster. Because that doesn't say just like chaos sorcerers. It's any spell casted near him. You roll on the wild surge table. You just do it. And then you have the weirder. Sorry, I missed one. You have then Sendam, the Lord of Insanity. She's technically female, but sometimes has been depicted as male. Is a golden amoeba with a human brain floating in the middle of it, but also can take the form of a massive golden Slaad. Or a beautiful skinned female elf warrior with a wisdom of 0.
Skipped a word. Golden skinned was the
beautiful golden skinned female.
Beautiful skinned is fine.
Well, yeah, fine. Beautiful golden skinned female elf
Depends
warrior.
What you're into.
So many adjectives right there. Beautiful golden skinned female elf warrior. Thank you. With a wisdom of 0, so no wisdom. Sindam is feared by her, even her own kind. She has no followers, no friends, and she believes that insanity is the true form of chaos. So whatever that means.
Just those lovely sweeping statements that they throw in that you're supposed to take meaning from that are just fluff.
So
it's like, oh, that doesn't mean anything.
Those are the major Sloth Lords you find on Wikipedia. I have a few of the weirder ones. So we got Renabu, Lord of Colors. He is a 12-foot tall Slaad, and his skin swirls in different hues. He roams the plains, changing the colors of beings and things. He has the power to transform creatures of one color into another. He lives in a pristine gallery deep in limbo, and he likes to turn drow white and gold dragons black. So think about that as a Sloth Lord for your party to meet.
It's minor
This is
inconvenience,
like a rejected
man.
Justice
That's
League
glorious.
superhero.
Yeah, like a useless superpower. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm sorry.
It's
What, like
amazing.
Spectrum? I'm not sure what his name would be. What would that X-Man?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Spectrum's
name.
good, right? Yeah.
I like
I don't know.
Spectrum.
Color wheel.
Color wheel.
Roll on out of here, buddy. Your power's useless.
I feel like a one shot, like, Colors of the Wind or something. Is it
Right? Oh my god, that would be great. I love it.
Somehow the crux of it is, I don't know. Yeah.
There's another
Everybody's
Sloth
getting gold
Lord.
pieces that are really copper pieces. That just
Oh
look
god, that'd
gold
be
or something. I don't
right?
know.
Blue
It just-
pieces?
Blue pieces. It just the fiery redhead in town is suddenly pissed because she's a brunette now. So another much more frightening Sloth Lord was featured in a Forgotten Realms adventure from the 90s named it was featuring a two-headed Sloth Lord named Brazim Gorag. Brazim is trapped in a vault, and bad guys are trying to unleash him on the world. He has two heads. He can take a human form with a form as a guy with bronze skin, red eyes, and he wields a glaive sheathed in black flame. Yeah, he doesn't. There was not a lot of detail or motivations in the story. It's just he is a very powerful Slaad that is on par with like a demon lord.
Yeah, he's reminds me of Demon Gorgon. If
Yeah,
anybody's familiar with him,
basically.
He's basically the Slaad version of him. Which that's the thing is, Slaad are a lot like demons, without the inherently evil bent. So you can have Slaad do silly things,
Right?
And
Or
it will make
helpful things,
sense.
honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, it doesn't. I mean,
It was talking about there are Slaads that will just like do beneficial and benevolent things. I assume just because they feel like it, you know.
they're bored. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can. Yeah, chaos. Yeah, it's a great example of, you know, you can just use that to explain anything away. But yeah, there's another thing that was tossed around that I laughed at really hard. Is you could have, it's another Mighty Glue Stick concept, is the time traveling like Doctor Who style Slaad, who's you know, like, yeah, you just kind of box off a chunk of limbo and then you open gates to it all the time, and that's your TARDIS, and he's running around and
fixing things.
Yeah, or well, and that's because that's the kind of the thing is, yeah, when we talk about this lore here thing, I do believe, yeah, Slaad resolve chaos, like,
Right.
regardless of how you look. Like, I think that they serve as like a constant on one side of the, you know, universal equation that Primus has set up, and they naturally are a balancing force kind of thing with their wonky ass behavior.
So the last Sloth Lord that I could pick up is probably the worst one. She is the Sloth Lord Urae Nas, Urae apostrophe Naas. She is a Sloth Lord who rules over the Phage breeding grounds, the 53rd
They know what they were doing.
layer of the Abyss. She is one of the few Abyssal Lords. Yep. The few Abyssal Lords who is not Tenari or Obrith, not a Tenari or Obrith demon. Urinas is extremely obese Slaad with a long, pendulous tongue. Unable to walk due to her extreme weight, she drags herself through her slimy realm with her strong clawed arms and tongue. So, that's a good one. I like that one.
That's my good hand.
Her name's, it's gotta be Uranus
Yep.
because they,
Yep.
it's, yeah, no, that makes sense.
So yeah, and let me tell you about that 53rd layer of the abyss. Not a great place to be. Not a good happy place. I'm just gonna throw a little bit of this out
Depends what
here.
you're into, really.
The entire layer is a massive winding tunnel of perpetually rotting flesh built from the intestines of the primordial deity Raminos. And if you want to go down a Wikipedia hole, look
Which
up
is
him.
why I think it's Uranus.
Yeah, right. Sleeping god of the bullywogs. He's dead now because yeah, they've made an entrance into an entire plane of the abyss. It's 10 miles long and its walls are lined with thick mucus. The phage breeding grounds take their name from the Slaad reproductive process, the disease called the Chaos Phage, which are what blue Slaads infect their victims with to turn them into red Slaads. The walls of this realm are embedded with countless still living humanoid victims infected with Slaad parasites will hatch over the course of many days. Not a great place to be. Yep, she's and drags her place by her tongue through this nasty place.
Oh God.
That's I just it's so
That's fine.
bad. It's so bad.
That's and it's like not even like it's not scary. It's not, you know, it's just gross.
I
You
mean,
know,
it's
Kinda
a little
I mean,
scary.
sure, I guess yeah, it would be scary to
If
see
you
it,
are in
right?
there, there's like half like stick
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
no
And
good.
it's just
I'm
full
out.
of sloths too. It's like it's
Ugh.
full
Yeah,
of
that too.
sloths.
Yeah, that's the other part.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well,
It says
I don't
even
like
other demons avoid this
right. Yeah,
putrid
you
realm.
would.
Yep.
Fuck
Like
that. Because
yeah,
you can,
it's-
yeah, that's Slaad can turn anything into a Slaad. Other Slaad. Like it doesn't,
Yep,
they
doesn't
don't
matter.
care.
Yeah, it's not a great
Universal
place to be.
concept.
So don't so if you're at going through the abyss and someone is like, "Hey, you want to stop at the 53rd layer?" Just be like, "Nah, fam. I'm good."
We'll jump straight to the
let 'em know.
54.
Let 'em know they just,
Yeah.
let them know they just closed the McDonald's down on that.
Right. Yeah.
It's
It's not worth it anymore.
Coffee house is
There's only
closed
one
there.
Starbucks.
Yeah, it's not great. Yep. Not great.
It's not conveniently located either.
So yeah, the Slaad
At
are
the S end.
Oh man. But yeah,
We did it.
So the Slaad are very entwined with the Forgotten Realms lore for
Yeah.
sure.
They're big time.
Yeah. So
They're kind of chaos elementals, or like, you know, not elementals, but they're like, yeah, these is almost primordial sort of entity, sort of things. Like, yeah, like I said.
And in Limbo, they've got some interesting abilities too. Because like I said, in Limbo, if you're a conscious creature, you can create reality around you. Slaads do this automatically. And at such a close proximity to their skin that they just kind of look like they float effortlessly through limbo and melt through objects and fire and stuff like that. Because what they're actually doing is they're just changing the environment at like an inch above their skin into breathable like material and survivable area.
Whatever.
Yeah. And so it looks like they're basically, you know, they're gliding through this, but they're actually changing reality in that realm at a certain level, which is also
if that's like your native realm, and it's a realm where you know, if you can think it, you can be it.
Mm-hmm.
Then they would almost have to have that sort of
They got to be able to navigate it or whatever, kind of.
They share Limbo with the Gith Zerai.
Almost. Gith Zerai. You were there. You had it.
Yep. Gith Zerai. Who are recent settlers of Limbo, but this is like recent in terms of like the entire Forgotten Realms history. So they've been there for thousands of years, and they've actually been able to colonize sections of Limbo and create permanent structures and even entire cities. But they're constantly not at war with the Slaads, but definitely like they just like, all right, we're gonna stay over here and you guys stay over there, you know, and we'll be good. And
then Slaad don't do that.
And then Slaad don't do that
bro.
because they're Slaad. And so yeah, there's constant little skirmishes, but for the most part, there's no major war going on in Limbo between the Slaad and the Gith. But yeah, So they're
It's a fun one.
yeah, so they can appear in other places, though. You know, if you've got a wizard that wants to summon a Slaad, he's got a problem because like wizards don't even summon demons because they're just like, I don't want to summon something that's like of anything of chaos. You know, I want to.
But you know, they do if they think they can bind them properly. That's like
Right.
most of the you
Yeah.
know, driving plot stuff for a lot of the adventures.
But that's the thing, it's like
Even
Slaads
Slaads
are even
don't even want to call Slaads to their aid because they don't
Right.
trust each other.
No.
So it's, you know, some Slaads can summon more Slaads. I think Green and Above have some sort of ability.
I think
to
they
pull
can,
Slaads
yeah.
out of thin air. But yeah, they won't do it unless they absolutely have to because they're all little shits.
Yeah, and they want to prove that they're the most powerful. Slaad society is
Individual,
built
mhm.
on individual power, and even they said like there's been no major Slaad rulers because even the Sloth Lords only really can control Slaads to. There was a really good quote: "Is like powerful Slaad can only control Slaad within reach." You know, it's just like, so the only way they can actually control Slaads by physically moving them around. Otherwise, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, you guys go
And it's
do
just
this,
not
and
worth
they're
it.
like, it's not gonna happen.
Nah.
So
Like, yeah, dude, okay. And then they
Yeah,
go
right.
like smell flowers
And
or
do
something,
something else.
and then
Yep.
pretend they're a cow.
Turn
Yeah.
the flies pink.
That would be so fun.
Right.
Imagine
hate
that
them
you could
even
just go
more.
around, turn things colors randomly. What a silly power. Okay.
Right?
Sorry. Oh my goodness.
What I think is neat is the gem on their head.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I could like
It, you know, and I don't
talk about
know
that.
how like, you know, muddled in canon the like stealing it and using it to control them is. If that's something that's
It's
relatively
in
new, or
the dungeon. It's in the monster manual for 5th edition. It has a little excerpt embedded in the Slaad's brain as a magic gem. Acquire it, and the Slaad is yours to command. And then on page 274 of the monster manual, it says, as the Slaad emerges from a spawning stone, the stone magically implants the fragment of itself in the Slaad's brain, which is one of those plot hole things that we talked about earlier, because they just went over
Like,
how
don't they? Yeah.
Slaads
How reproduction
reproduce.
works, and they're not spawned from.
They don't come
that.
from the stone. They come from red and blue Slaads. You know.
Chaos!
Yeah, right. So ignore that part. This fragment takes the form of a magic gem, roughly the size and shape of a human child's fist. Weird comparison. The gem
Yeah,
is the same
odd.
color as the Slaad. Another creature can use magic to draw forth a Slaad's gem and use it to subjugate the Slaad. So you can like pluck these things out of their heads with magic and then use them to subjugate the Slaad. This is variant.
Or just crack their
however.
head open and take it out.
Right.
Like,
That
because they have serious regenerative
serious
powers.
regenerative powers.
And
Yep.
chaos, so they don't need their
And
brain.
chaos,
It's
yeah.
fine.
what I think is really cool about them. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish your.
Actually, you know, reading on in this paragraph, it does say a Slaad born from something other than the spawning stone has no gem in its brain, but gains one if it ever comes into contact with the spawning stone. Slaad on Limbo attract the
Oh.
Well, they
spawning stone,
do.
so most end up with a gem.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
All
There
right.
you go. So that makes sense. See, I would not put Slaad into your game that don't have the potential of this thing, because otherwise they're really dangerous and they will just murk the fuck out of your party. Like,
Yep.
Slaad have been
Especially
doling
if you
out
play them
TPKs
like
for
how a
additions.
Slaad would probably,
Yeah.
you know, do their thing.
Just pick the one dude off from the edge who's, you know, goes out to check the perimeter, and then
they do
they never come back.
In the Slaad tactics page on the Monsters Note, they said that Slaads are most likely to actually attack lawful aligned characters first, ignoring chaotic or neutral aligned characters. And then once all lawful characters have been incapacitated, they will roll at random for attacks.
I guess that makes more sense if you're trying to stick with the sort of like senseless madness side of the chaos thing. That makes a lot of sense.
So it's a little aside here that I wanted to something funny that I saw. I think it might have been AJ Pickett or one of the other YouTubers, but it said that so Slaads have a mythology where the universe or the multiverse of the Forgotten Realms is actually like a bunch of different universes that were smashed together at the beginning of creation. And the Slaads are the only race that know about this and can see it, which is what's driving them mad. And so the reason they want to tear everything apart is they want to free these other universes from themselves, untangle this horrible mess that's been made.
Right.
And so it's an interesting way of looking at that. In the they're just like they need to rip it apart.
Right. It's like the so the concepts of like Greyhawk, you got like Ebir, Toril, the Faerun, all these different worlds that exist. I think those are all different ones. But Eberron, the various different universes all exist as like different layers of the material plane kind of an idea or something, which is tossed around with other things, but it's interesting that they tie Slaad into this like metaphysical nature of reality thing. They're just they're these agents of chaos and entropy sort of deal.
Yep.
Which I guess we could go around to their actual origin stuff now. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we want to go to a break first, or do we want to start that?
Actually, break would be. We would have enough time. Yeah.
I just looked at what time it is now.
Yeah. So.
All right, fellas. Thanks for popping in and saying hello and giving us a ton of terrible dad jokes about Slaads in the chat.
Right?
They weren't terrible.
They were amazing.
They were great.
No, they were horrible. They were the worst.
I love them.
Every Thursday we do this, Table 13. We don't do this particular thing. STYAB only is going to happen about once a month.
Every now and then.
Which is an acronym for Smarter Than Your Average Bugbear,
right.
Where we talk about monsters and different ways to use them and give you some lore and stuff on them. Every other Friday we put out a podcast called Dragons of Paralandia. You can find that anywhere you find podcasts at. You should check it out. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
You can follow us on here. Follow us on Twitter at Irrational Radio. You can give us money on Patreon. We appreciate that a lot too. Join our Discord. Hang out with us there. There's a bunch of different games running there, and a whole bunch of really friendly people. Really great place to come just hang out and play with people. Other than that, Gods of Aether every other Monday.
Right.
Another Twitch stream that we do. What are you looking at, Karen?
YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Because
Anyway, thanks.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
And we'll be back in I don't know. I always say 10 minutes, and then it's
10 minutes.
15. So we're just gonna take 15.
It'll be 20 now,
and we'll be back in 10.
In 20 minutes.
I will throw a fit.
We'll 10, 15 minutes.
I
Everybody.
would just throw a fit.
And we will be back with the origin of the Slaad, and as well as some mechanical information from 5e and the dungeon and the bestiary. So thank you, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Bye-bye.
Are you one of millions of adventurers who have suffered from dagger-infested dungeons? Are you a shopkeeper with a cellar full of wild pythons? Are you a bard trying to seduce a Medusa? Then I have the product for you. Dr. Josiah Mason here with Snake Begone Oil. Just one drop of this revolutionary product will have you saying, gee, all the snakes are gone. Because that is exactly what will happen. Anacondas? Gone. Giant vipers? Gone. Water Naga, Spirit Naga, Bone Naga, gone, gone, gone. Snake Begone Oil will even work on a Medusa. Yes, any snake or snake-related creature that comes within 100 meters will be miraculously repelled in an instant. It's that fast. Those snakes won't know what hit them when you use Snake Begone Oil. Don't wait, get yours today.
Snake Begone Oil has not been tested by the King's Alchemist or any royal authority. Snake Begone Oil should not be used as a replacement for combat, pest control, or as a marital aid. Gnomes who are pregnant or nursing should avoid contact with Snake Begone Oil. Snake Begone Oil has not been proven to repel snakes of any kind. All sales final.
My name's Eric. Not Freddy.
Welcome back! We are back from break. Here with another Table 13. We're going to continue talking about Slaads and, Slaad things.
He said "Ready, Freddy," and my name is Eric. So you probably only caught that half of it. So
you only
got
"I'm Eric." I made sure to unmute the thing as soon as he said "I'm Eric." So yeah,
that's good.
I think that you should lead us in the discussion of the Slaad's
Oh,
origin, Mr.
okay.
E, because you're so
I'm
intimately,
passionate.
yeah, you're passionate about these guys. I know, I can tell.
No,
They're your favorite.
so I have a pet theory. Well, actually, I really do like the Slaad. I think they're a cool concept. So this, it kind of Slaad. I'll come back to this spawning stone thing, which if you read the Monster Manual entry, it says something about them, it being basically, Primus is raging against the infinite chaos of Limbo. He dropped this rock in here to bring some semblance of order to the thing, and Slaad were the result after some sort of basically stone gets infected by chaos or something down the line, and starts pumping out crazy frog people or whatever, because chaos. But and I think that's like totally functional way of looking at it. It works, but it I think takes away from Primus being the fucking badass that he is, that operates the like giant computer that is the universe, in lore, and it assumes that like you made a mistake, which is silly. He doesn't do that. And the idea is that like he dropped this logic bomb in Limbo, and this is the result. It's an ordered version of chaos, which serves, like I was saying, as this kind of universal constant that sits on the other side from things like Modrons and whatever, forces of law, normal sentient beings with ordered thoughts, but that they still go through and resolve chaos. They are still going around, and they're drawn to weird shit like it's like they talked about them showing up at big magical events or some things like that, like the site of stuff like that, or places where the border's weak and things along those lines. And so they're sort of drawn to these sort of chaotic spaces, and then they go there and they, or they're in the blood war, and they're taking demons and devils and turning them into Slaad. And so I think it's sort of this thing. There's sort of this prevailing idea that they were an unintended consequence of this, futile attempt at making order out of Limbo, and I think that it's a little different, because you can look in there and as the lore goes, following this stone being in there, the Githzerai can move in. You can have, you have the Slaad, who are beings of order, however you look at it. This sort of spawning stone thing that they all come from, that they all have a piece of in their brain, it's like that's all a systemic, like orderly thing, and they actually
they meet there seasonally to like get primed for turning people into fucking alien predator monsters.
Yep.
Like fertilizing their various
and there's
claw
nothing more
eggs.
orderly than a seasonal goddamn orgy in Limbo.
Right.
And they have this whole caste system that's like very, I don't know, it's clearly defined. There are specific conditions under which they go from one caste to the other, or however you look at it. Like, it's all about balance, really, because like, reds make blues make reds, and then greens are rare, and it goes down the line, and they've got this whole secondary progression that at the end of it requires you eat the people at the top,
right?
And so there's this, it's just, like it's ordered chaos. And so that's, I guess, my like sort of pet theory on them, is that they aren't they're beings of organized out of just messed up chaos or whatever, if that sentence even makes sense,
right?
But they do serve a lawful purpose, because they were created by a lawful, like it's they're whether or not they think they are, they're helping to attain the ends that Primus kind of set out in the beginning. That's my theory anyway. But and that's pretty much the gist of it, though, is he drops that stone into Limbo, and then they start popping out, and then they go all over the place and start hunting down random victims here and there, I think, right? Like, I mean, that's there's some more things involved. There's talk about whether or not your girl, whatever the fuck, the YGORL,
the
mofucker,
backwards god,
that he may have been involved in changing the stone into what from what Primus put in there into Limbo, into what spawns these crazy frog people. But And that'd be a cool bit because it's this, he forms a loop and then the Slaad are this weird paradox that, fulfill themselves kind of thing or whatever. And that's interesting. But I don't know. They're fucking cool.
They are.
Slaad are interesting.
They're
they're
really
like
cool.
demons, but they're not necessarily evil. So they're fun to use.
I wanted to take a minute at the end of this to do a sort of bogbear situation, right? Let's let the bogbear out of the cave. I got a couple ideas, and I think I'm just gonna pitch the one. So what I've read is that the little stone in their head basically displays their metrics in a way. It's got like markings and stuff on it that sort of show like how effective they are, how many shits they've killed, and all that. I like the idea that some kind of like orderly being, so maybe a denizen of you know it, Eric, the place with all this. That's the one. Maybe a denizen of Mechanus goes around and collects these Slaads that have the best KD ratio, basically, right?
Okay.
And he removes the little crystal thing, and he's got like a shelf of all these crystals or whatever, and tries to get the best ones so that he can build an army of his little controlled.
So he can be the very best that no one ever was.
Basically, like the Pokemon
train them is
right. Yeah, the
well, and
Slaad
it's such like a slap in the face to the whole like chaotic community,
like a
Slaad
Slaad in the face.
Yeah,
to take their people and use them against and then he can use them to do the normal Slaad thing.
Yeah, he controls them or whatever. Well, I mean,
things,
yeah,
and then
make them into
more
Slaads.
Slaads out of them. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
and that could be like a neat little adventure where it starts off where you're fighting these Slaads and everybody's like, oh, I know where this is going. We're gonna go to Limbo and fucking whatever. And then give it that twist on its heels into this scenario where you're actually going against like this
it's, one of the Segundas or whatever they're called, the people under Primus is plotting to overthrow Primus. He wants to ascend or something, blah blah blah. And you've got now and he's getting a bunch of crazy frog folk to help him in his effort or something like this.
We should go over really quick their stats in 5e as well.
Oh, I guess.
We didn't do that.
Yeah.
So if you do want to use them in your campaign, this is kind of what level. So they've been described as upper low to mid tier. So you're looking at like levels 5 to 15 in terms of like Slaads starting to take place, where you have characters that are maybe level 5 trying to take on a single red Slaad, because they are a CR of 5, and if in the hands of a skilled or creative DM, they can be very powerful. So you red Slaad, strength 16, dex of 12, con of 16. They have 6 intelligence, 6 wisdom, 7 charisma. They have damage resistances to acid, cold, fire, lightning, and thunder. A AC of 14 and 93 hit points. So they're pretty stout. They're pretty good monster to throw at reasonably leveled parties. They also have magic resistance, advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, as well as a pretty good regeneration at 10 hit points at the start of the turn, as long as they have 1 hit point. Blue Slaads are a little bit bigger and meatier, so they're a challenge rating of 7, 20 strength, 15 dex, 8 con, 7 intelligence, 7 wisdom, 9 charisma, 15 AC with 123 HP, and the same regeneration and magical resistances. They also make bite and claw attacks, and the claw attacks of the Blue Slaad has a the whole, if you don't succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, you get Chaos Phaged. And it looks like in 5e, the disease reduces the target's hit point maximum to 0.
Slowly over time.
Yeah, slowly over time.
3d6
by
a day
3d6 every 24 hours. Yep, you're right. Yep. And then, if a blue Slaad, if a blue or red Slaad infects someone who's a powerful enough magic user, they turn into a green Slaad. And the green Slaad is a magic caster with an AC of 16, hit points of 127, so a little bit better than the blue Slaad. They have less strength, at 18. Same dex, less con, but much more intelligence and wisdom at 11 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 12 charisma. And they also can shape change. They're the first Slaad in the group that can shape change. And this is actually something that was talked about a lot in like older adventures, is you'd have a lot of like green Slaads pretending to be mages or maidens or even like barkeepers trying to get adventurers to do certain things to advance its weird chaotic goals.
But I like the theory that they just wouldn't. They're like humans who wouldn't get it. Like they'd be the worst at it.
Just,
like pretending to be a human. They're just like, "Hello, fellow human." You know,
I
like
do
it doesn't.
enjoy masticating.
Breathing is entertaining. Yes, like no man.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
So they also have some innate spellcasting, like they can detect magic, detect thoughts, mage hand twice a day, or at will, sorry, and then twice a day they can cast fear or invisibility only on themselves, and then once a day they can just cast fireball, just once every 24 hours, just a fireball for fun. So that's dangerous in itself. They're a challenge rating of 8, and just with that fireball, that's an accidental party TPK if you just aren't balancing things right.
Roll high,
roll high, yeah, and like you're fucking the paladin you thought was going to survive it ends up not making his save, and oh dear,
you drop the bard who's the only one with healing spells or something. It's like, oh, whoops.
And so while the red Slaad and blue Slaads are like dangerous in terms of just as big meaty creatures with some AC and dangerous attacks, the green Slaad is really where you start getting into these things. Can accidentally wipe a party or kind of ruin an encounter if it's just if they're thrown in a party.
That regeneration and stuff with some of the early the blue and red Slaads, if you throw 2 reds at a level 5 party, they're gonna have a pretty tough time, especially if it's not the first fight of the day.
The Slaads won't attack together. They won't work together. They will attack
unless somebody's controlling them.
Unless someone is,
because they all have a gem in their head that lets someone tell them exactly what
that
to
could be
do.
interesting if you've got a party of like maybe someone with an arcane knowledge skill or something of an experience with Slaads. You could have like two red Slaads attack a party of reasonably high casters, and that could be like the start of a mystery. Like, wait, why did 2 Slaads attack us? That's not what they do. Someone must have been controlling them.
Make an arcane.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And so that's an
It's like,
interesting way.
It's really weird to you that you saw 2 Slaads working toward the same goal and never fighting each other the whole time.
Yep.
Like, that's really weird. It's like, oh, okay, what's going on? There's more to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's depth there more than just like demons are really hard. They want to kill and slaughter and whatnot. So it's harder to pass like the greater arc through with them, but you have a very similar sort of mystique with with these fools. I'm having so much trouble pulling up their stupid name, Slaad. I don't know why.
Slaad.
My brain is dumb.
So the last 2 they're mentioned in the bestiary are the Gray Slaad and the Death Slaad. Basically the same. They're basically more powerful versions of the Green Slaad in terms of both characteristics and innate spellcasting. Like the Gray Slaad can cast a fireball twice a day and plane shift once a day, which is usually what they'll do to escape. They'll plane shift away from combat because they won't ever fight to the death, because like Mr. E said, that makes their they can't breed and they can't spread chaos, or at least themselves.
And there's nothing they're committed enough to that they'd like die for, probably.
Exactly. So. Yeah. And then again, Death Slaad, more powerful green Slaad, but can also cast Cloud Kill once a day, which is just if you want to really TPK a party, put a group of level 6s against the Death Slaad. Yeah, and then you won't have a party anymore. That is the collected information that I have learned about Slaads today. And let me tell you, I never want to meet one in person because it's just I don't want shit bursting out of my chest, and I don't want myself to slowly turn into a red bestial monster. I don't want to get stuck to a wall of mucus and slowly eaten by larvae.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Kyron posted in chat today. He's like, I don't like these.
Yeah, Slaad are bad.
Slaad are bad with 2 A's.
Put
Bad
2
with
A's
2
in
A's.
too. Well done, yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, we can
A
switch
plus.
topics. Is this like?"
No, yeah, I was like,
just
no,
like,
no. That was a pun, guys. Like,
But in all seriousness, they're absolutely right. They're
yeah,
so goddamn terrifying.
so unpredictable and
Right.
just destructive, basically. Yeah, they're entropy given form, and it's kind of cool. But so as far as like alternative concepts for how Slaad could work, multi-level marketing scheme. There are tiers of advancement that you go through, right? There's lower level grunts that are never going to get above that first rung. You've got, people who just initially, by virtue of their whatever circumstances are automatically starting at this higher, actual rate of advancement. They're just a pyramid scheme.
They don't sell in the usual way though.
No, yeah, you sell like your infection, I guess. I don't know, but
No, you
but you
Oh,
could look
God.
at it
You
like
just
they've
scratch
got numbers,
The
It's like
Facebook
everybody's
posts would
getting,
be way
these are
worse.
rookie numbers.
Yeah.
Come on, get it together.
God damn it.
They've got it. That's how they get it. They've just got to infect X number of people before they'll, reach that, quota or whatever.
That's pretty
Get the new
good.
set
I
of
like
steak
that.
knives or
I really
whatever,
like that concept. I
running
I
around
enjoy
in
that.
suits and fedoras. I don't know. Frog people in suits. A plus.
Well,
For whatever
guys,
reason.
thank you very much for tuning in tonight. We had a blast.
Yep.
It was fun. There were
Yep.
ups, there were downs, there was
Slad
drama
pull.
and mystery,
Don't forget that.
and the slots.
Slot puns.
Slad pull.
Come see us
That's
again
my
next
favorite.
Thursday. That'll be the next time we stream.
Yep.
We stream every other Monday. We streamed this Monday.
We sure did.
Dark Tidings.
Check it out on the
It'll be
VOD.
2 weeks from that. We run the VODs. Every Sunday we do a big old block of reruns. So if you missed it, jump in on Sunday. Check that out. Follow us here on Twitter or on Twitch. This isn't Twitter. This
Nope.
is Twitch.
The other
Follow
T.
us here on Twitch. You can also follow us on Twitter at Irrational Radio. Our website is down below where you can find episodes of our podcast, Dragons of Paralandia, which you can also find on all the major podcast network things. Join our Discord, it's down below as well as our Patreon. You can subscribe to us on here. I think it's called subscribing, where you give us
think
money.
that's right.
That's pretty cool because then you don't get ads. Because I believe you get ads if you're not.
Right.
And Bags, thank you very much
Yeah,
for
thanks, man.
the multitude of
Gift subs.
sub
Yeah.
gifts
It's awesome.
tonight.
Generoso.
But thank you all very much, and we will see you all in a week.
Bye.
Bye.